Evening, everybody. Well, late afternoon, actually, I should say. Silverbolt here, back for a Transformers review. Yes, you may have noticed that the title screen is not there. I'm currently having problems with my codec pack ever since I put the new computer together, and I still haven't downloaded the proper one yet, but hopefully I'll get that sorted at some point for my sound drivers. Today, anyway, as I've had fairly few requests for him, I'm doing Brawn, Generation 1 Autobot. Okay? Brawn is one of the original Autobots that comes to Earth in The More Than Meets the Eye. And Brawn is depicted as his name would suggest, a brawler. He's a brawler, and he's one of the strongest Autobots. And it seems to be a running thing with the mini-bots, because Huffer as well is extremely strong, much more so than you'd expect for a robot of their size. Brawn is considered to be the second strongest of the Autobots, next to Prime. Okay, Brawn's cartoon depictions show him as a gruff, very much to the point, likes to smack it over the head kind of guy. And as such, he doesn't really have a lot of subtlety to him, which the cartoon further emphasises. And Brawn shows up in and out of episodes in the first series, and his main episode is with Perceptor, when he accuses Perceptor of cowardice, because Perceptor, of course, would rather think rather than fight. Anyway, him, Bumblebee and Perceptor end up going inside Megatron when Megatron gets this superpower bonus thing that allows him to shoot lightning bolts out of the end of his fingers. Very Emperor Palpatine. And it's during that, and he's still ribbing Perceptor about this constantly, about how Perceptor's a coward. And it's not until the very, very end when Brawn turns around and says, anybody who thinks that my friend Perceptor's not a hero has got to come through me. Blah, blah, blah. Very, very Autobot, G1, huggy at the end kind of job. Well, as huggy as a character like Brawn will ever get. Brawn, of course, is the first Autobot to die in the movie. However, this death has a lot of controversy within it. You see, Brawn, Brawn's on the shuttle, the Decepticons smash through into the shuttle, and none of the Autobots seem to notice this, by the way. It's quite amusing, you know. The Decepticons rip a huge hole in the shuttle, storm aboard, and nobody seems to spot this. Until Brawn turns around in his seat and goes, Megatron! And jumps forward and cue the first of the cheesy 80s cock rock theme tunes for the Transformers movie. Megatron transforms and into his gun mode, and he's fired by Starscream and hits Brawn here in his shoulder. Now, Brawn goes down like a sack of bricks, and supposedly that's the end of him, but it's created a lot of controversy for two reasons. One, Brawn is considered throughout the whole of Series 1, in his character bio and in the comics, as being one of the strongest Autobots going. Okay, Megatron's fusion cannon is sudden powerful, but it's a hit to the shoulder. Surely he could survive that. Two, Brawn is actually seen in, I believe it's the episode Carnage to C Minor in Series 3. And I believe he's also one of the Autobots that's defending Teletran 1, the Ark, from the attack of Trypticon. So, but a lot of that, because Series 3 had a huge amount of animation and factual errors, it could just be down to an animation mistake. But the other thing as well that would indicate that Brawn possibly died is you see an effect, you see Brawn fall, you see him get hit in the shoulder, he falls down, and then you see his back spewing out this purple glowing smoke / fire. So you could argue that Megatron's blast acted like a hollow point. And so it went in and then ruptured and then came out the back. So you don't really see Brawn again past Series 3. He doesn't really have any factual episodes, so you can argue amongst yourselves whether you think that Brawn is alive or whether Brawn is dead. So it's there and then. I mean, because Brawn is so popular, a lot of fans do not like to believe that he died. Okay, now Brawn is in the Marvel comics. He's in there from the very beginning, pretty much. Back in the day when the Marvel Transformers actually looked like their toy counterparts, not their cartoon counterparts. And I believe it's Brawn that very early on in the Marvel comics actually becomes kind of like a sidekick for Spider-Man, because Marvel like doing their crossovers between Transformers and their Marvel action heroes, and indeed has continued doing so up to this day, because they're still doing Transformer Marvel crossovers. Okay, Brawn ims and ahs throughout the comics. He never really comes into it, he never really comes out of it. He really only has one major few episodes, where he suffers damage due to an electrical experiment, I believe it is, and he goes a little bit crazy, and eventually he nearly beats Sideswipe to death. But in order to prove his loyalty to the Autobot cause, he goes in a one-on-one duel with Starscream, and loses. Because Starscream, being Starscream, just goes into the air where Brawn can't get him, because of course the Autobots can't fly. Well, we won't go into that one. The other thing as well that we notice in that is that Brawn appears to have been killed in that incident. However, it later shows up to have been, for some reason, it's Mirage uses a holographic display to show that Brawn didn't die. I don't know. I would have thought it would have been Hound, but apparently it's Mirage. Brawn is one of the many Autobots that is deactivated by the underpowered Starscream. Though again, he eventually gets recovered by. He eventually gets repaired by Grimlock using Nucleon. So there is that aspect to it. Okay, now he is part of in the Dreamwave productions. He's part of Jazz's unit, where they have the whole incident with Lazarus and all that. But he doesn't really show up in Dreamwave. He was a soldier prior to the Cybertronian War, and then chooses the Autobot side. He doesn't really show up into that. Okay, Brawn has never had a major reissue, and he's only ever had a similar rename in RID called X-Brawn, which is a very similar style of character, but again is very, very individual to him. Onto the toy itself. Originally released in the 1983 Japanese Microman range as he's a Jeep Defender, I believe, Jeep Defender 4x4, and it even actually has on the back Takara 1983. Came out again in 84 as obviously one of Hasbro's Transformers, and has pretty much gone on from there. Okay, quite a dinky little toy. You've already seen me fiddle with them, but I'll transform now. It's, you just fold the legs down, kinda. They're a little bit fiddly. Flip over his door panels, and pull his arms up. Except the fact I've got one of his arms stuck. And there we have Brawn in a very, very silly little robot mode. The only thing he really has in common with his cartoon counterpart is the back piece on his head and the shape of his head, and that's really all he really has. Brawn has been released a couple of times, mostly as a keychain, and I think he got a BotCon exclusive as well, but I'm not entirely sure of that. Hasn't been released through the Encore edition. The up-and-coming Omega Supreme does feature some mini-bots through the Encore, but I don't think Brawn's one of them. I think it's Huffer, Powerglide, Bumblebee and Cosmos. There's not a lot to be said about the toy. It's a nice toy from the 80s. Definitely, like all the mini-bots, very simplistic, but goes quite nicely with the rest of the range. I mean, this one's very loose. The legs keep fiddling up and down. Okay, but that's Brawn. Not an awful lot more I can say about him, so I'm going to sign off there. Shall be back shortly, of course, with another video. But for now, this is Silverbolt with Brawn signing off, saying au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen.